You go. Our screens are blank. Screens are blank, just so you know. She's working on that. I want to welcome everybody to the February 5th regularly scheduled City Council meeting. If you could all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we could get a roll call, please.
Councilmember Engel?
Here.
Councilmember Hagan?
Here?
Councilmember Walker?
Here.
Councilmember Stroman?
Here.
Mayor Bellinger?
Here. Thank you. Up first, we had scheduled a presentation, but that has been postponed to our next regularly scheduled meeting, I understand?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, Jalen French filling in temporarily for Dominique as she is out of the office today. Those who were to be recognized for Citizen of the Month notified us on Friday that they were not available to attend this meeting. So we hope to push the item to the next meeting, which is February 20th.
Thank you. Next up is our consent calendar. These items are considered routine in nature and are acted upon by a single action unless requested by an individual council member or a member of the public for special consideration. So at this time up here, is there anything that we need to pull for special consideration at the council level?
Have anything?
Anything in the audience here at the level? And if not seeing any, I'll take a motion.
I'll motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'd second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Carries 5-0. Next up, staff communications, and item number 5, San Joaquin County Commission on Aging update. Ms. Sandoval. We are.
Okay, hello everyone, Elsa Sandoval, senior rep. Actually, I'd spoken to Dominique. She says I needed approval. We have a lot of seniors that have been asking about free tax preparation or tax services, and they're not aware that it happens in our library starting this Wednesday up until the close of tax day via appointment for free. And I was told I needed to bring a flyer in hopes of having the city either post it on the senior part of the website, have it go out on their Facebook, and maybe a little blurb, obviously not a flyer, but a little blurb in the newsletter, if possible, to get word out there. And then,
So they're going to allow them to file their tax returns there at the library if they bring their information then?
yeah, they'll be
They'll help.
working with them right there.
Awesome.
I didn't get them back in front, but this is the IRS official, and this is just the basic info. We'll be putting that out for the public at different spots where seniors tend to gather. We'll be putting out the post office, Almond Grove, Heritage, I know the Fun Bunch
Just say fun bunch. Yep.
requested. A couple of others have requested where seniors gather. This is not just for seniors, but this is my focus, so, yeah. And they do have what they call tax counseling for the elderly, so it'll help seniors do a little bit more than your standard taxes.
Okay.
It is for considered low income. They have to make under $55,000 a year, which most seniors at this point, if they're just pulling Social Security, fall under that. But, so I just needed that to bring that to council for a vote, if it's okay to have the city put it in their
Consensus.
website, Facebook, and potentially a blurb in the next newsletter.
For city lawyer, Frank, do we just need a consensus on that, or?
Yeah, consensus. I think it's a great idea. Wherever we can,
Yeah,
in my opinion, is wherever we can get that out to the citizens of Escalon in any avenue possible, whether it's knocking on doors or hitting all the social media outlets of whatever we can possibly do, any service organization, I think that would be great.
You guys have a record of them, but, okay, how's it?
Are you doing it all at the community center also?
It's on there, but it'll be done at the public library.
Oh, okay. Good.
It is by appointment only, the number's on there.
Okay.
I think you have consensus on-
Wednesday, it'll be every Wednesday, starting this Wednesday, from 1:30 to 4. So they call and they make their appointment. There's a list on there, what they need to bring, et
Great.
cetera. And it runs all the way to April 10th.
Can I ask a
Thank
question?
you.
Please.
Who's sponsoring the program?
It's from the IRS. That's-
Oh, it's direct from IRS?
Yeah,
Great.
IRS, that's the flyer on there. And so it is listed, if you go to the IRS website as to where these centers are, Escalon is now on there. And you'll see, I think Manteca's on there and so forth. It's whoever can arrange for them to come. If we get enough people to attend, then they will continue to come. And then they'll increase how many people. Right now, they just have one. So the more appointments they get, the more they get. And then hopefully next year, we'll also have bilingual.
Ms. Sandoval, how many people do we need minimum
Or what?
to be able to
How
have
many
the
folks do we need
program?
to,
You know what, they determine that. I don't know what they consider viable. Escalon's not turned out the biggest numbers on that, so we're hoping that, so they're down to one person. That person, I did speak to that person. They said they have a backup person. If they get enough appointments, they'll bring in a second person. And if necessary, they can bring in more. And if they get enough of a turnout this year, they'll continue with the service next year and even increase it, we hope, to bilingual.
question on the program, I really hope we don't have this, if we don't have enough folks that do it, but there is a need for that, and there's some folks that would really appreciate that. If the program drops out for Escalon, are we allowed to go within the county and get a senior to Manteca or some other location that does that? Are we allowed to do that, or is it
Yes.
city-specific?
No, it's, really, they can go anywhere. It's IRS-specific, but it's
Okay.
usually hosted through counties, like the United Way will do their own. AARP was doing some, but they didn't get enough people, so they dropped that's why there's only one person. So there are other organizations, but they have to see the need in a specific town.
Right, I'm just, as long as it's not just specific to Escalon, it's like, okay, our program dropped next year, but we had 30 folks that really relied on that help. If we can get them to Manteca, if that's
Yeah.
where the next location is to do it, they still have the service available.
Yes.
And we can, if that does happen, we can keep them alerted to where they can go.
Yes.
If we do end up losing it, hopefully
And
we
if they
don't.
can't make Escalon, then they can always make Manteca or Ripon and some of the others. I did not list those on there since the idea is that,
Keep them Escalon so we can keep them coming back
Yeah.
here for everybody that doesn't travel outside of the
Yeah.
city for the most part,
and
yeah.
those are the seniors that have been asking specifically, do you have tax? Can you bring in VITA through AARP and United Way? But it turns out AARP stopped. And the IRS works with United Way to make sure this happens.
Great.
So,
Let's get the word out and let's see what we can do to keep this program going. Any other questions down here or over here? Don't monopolize any questions there. If not, do we have a consensus up here for us to go ahead and publicize on all city websites and social activity possibilities on that? We're good?
Yes.
We got a yes.
There we go. I think we got a yes from everybody. There you go. Awesome. Thank you for bringing that to us. Appreciate that.
So Mayor, just a note, sorry for the bustle around here. We understand you don't have your agendas on the screen. We're printing out agenda copies. We did have our IT help here to help with any issues that we may be experiencing during the meetings. We thought it was going to be YouTube. It looks like it screens at the dais, but so we have coverage.
YouTube's working on everything right now.
It appears to be working.
Hello, everybody out there.
Is the go-to meeting working as well? I have YouTube up, but is the go-to working?
Let me check when Yvette gets back.
Okay, we'll keep on moving on. Next up is matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the city of Escalon. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. You may state your name and address for the record, however, it is not required. Due to state law, action will not be taken on an item that is not on the agenda, and except for brief responses, the council is prohibited from discussing any item not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda. The determination of whether an item is within the subject matter of the city is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. And at this point, we'll open it up. Mr. Danziger, what you got for us?
Thank you, Mayor Bellinger. Mayor, City Council, a couple items. My intent is to bring this up at every council meeting up until the expiration of the permit for the industries across the street, which is July 1st. And since there's no staff report tonight, I don't know where we are with that. I would suggest that we don't issue another permit till we have heard in an affirmative manner that they are going to pay their fair share of whatever we've decided to do at the wastewater treatment plant. Along that line, one thing that always bothered me about it is the previous city council in 2019 heard from Pace Advanced Water Systems about, all those 5 different procedures we could go through with our wastewater, and they decided on one in that study that they liked and they wanted to go forward with. After that, Blackwater came up with this plan, as you know, for $40 million, but it never saw the city council. Like the park, you never got to see all that ahead of time. You didn't get to see, or the previous council didn't get to see how that came with. They didn't say yes or no to it. So bear that in mind. No council has approved what's going through the works right now. So again, July 1st, that's the end of this permit. The end of the permit's June 30th. The beginning of the next one, I would imagine, would be July. Secondly, there was an item brought up by Councilman Engel at the end of last meeting. Council communications, I thought was, as a citizen and a previous planning commissioner, thought was off base regarding who should be eligible to be on our city council and people outside the city limits, sphere of influence, if you will. Those aren't people that get to sit up there on that council. And the city attorney, not this one, responded to Mr. Engel and said the inquiry that they would need to do research on the matter, and she suggests sending a one-way communication to whomever you are and not bring it out to the public. I think that's vague and not transparent. And I hope that if there's a decision made on that we all get to hear it. That city attorney is not here tonight, and I would hope that you would make that public if and when that gets answered. Thank you.
Happy to respond to that.
Please, briefly. Sure.
Yeah, just in the interest of transparency, I wasn't there, but I understood it was a question really that was being raised. There wasn't necessarily a specific agenda or asked to get a particular result, but just a question. I did look at it, and you are not an elector of the city unless you are a resident of the city, within the city's limits.
And that's all I'm asking.
Yep.
Was the appropriate responses here.
Yep. And like I said, that's why I wanted to say it right now.
Great. Anybody else in the audience that would like to come to the podium and speak on anything tonight?
Can I ask one quick question?
Brief?
Or
Yeah.
brief?
Brief.
Are we in a position to shed any light on how things are going with Mr. Danzinger's question?
Yeah, sure. I think we kind of went a little fast on staff communications. I have quite a few updates here to give council, with one of the updates being wastewater treatment plant design.
Okay, you want to get to that when we get to that?
Sure.
We'll do some
Okay.
staff administration shortly.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem.
Cool. Anybody else before we close matters presented from the audience? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close matters presented from the audience. We'll go ahead and go to administrative matters. Before we get to those two items, let's go ahead and do staff communications briefly. I know there's some brief staff communications you wanted to do.
Sure, I can go ahead and start. Good evening, council. I'll go ahead and start with the wastewater treatment plant design. As we've been keeping you folks updated, what we're in the process right now is reached back out to the state last week, and they are still reviewing a compliance form and annual report. Good news is they're actually reviewing it. They thought it'd take a lot longer to get to it. With that being said, we continue to have meetings with the industries. This week, again, we have meetings with Blackwater and QSI. The industries are 100% on board with the process of what's going on. They're definitely understand what's coming down the pipe. We're all just working together as a team to come to a final solution. So please just know the industries are definitely on board and meeting with us regularly.
So Justin,
Yes.
to that point, when do we expect to have the industry sign on the dotted line, no matter what the position is moving forward?
I mean, obviously, it's like a business. They can't sign off on anything until we present them, say, this is what we're doing, this is what it's gonna cost. Everything that we say we're gonna do right now, they're in total agreements with, but there's no number to it yet because we don't have exactly what the state's making us do on that compliance for, and so we haven't given Blackwater, put this down into dollar amount. So until we get that dollar amount, there's nothing for them to sign.
Do we have any idea when the state is going to get back to us?
The best they can tell us is by the end of the year.
2024?
Yeah. We think it'll be sooner, but that's literally what they are telling us. We have recordings of that and everything.
So that we can avoid, things that have happened in the past, you're obviously planning on bringing this to the council probably when it's all
Of course.
finalized.
As soon as there's a next step that we move forward, it'll be being brought to the council. There's just
Okay.
not another step until we get
then.
our information back from the state. But yes, of course, you'll have options. We won't just make, this
Okay.
is what we want to do. Do you agree with it? It'll
Gotcha.
come back with some more options, just better options than what we had last time.
So a lot of these questions will be, that Mr. Danzinger's brought up, has brought up, will obviously come to light in that situation.
That's true.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Also, too, want to update you on the Phase 2 sewer project that's in the process right now. I think it's going as good as it can. Of course, the rain has really been hindering a lot of contractors in the area now. So we're out at the orchard and the gun range, and it is a mess, but they've been continuing to work, just a lot more pumping, a little bit more timing, but it's going very well. Well 1 also, we've got some piping in the ground at this point now, so that process is moving well. As far as well 1, we're still waiting on the pumpings to get installed. We're still waiting on generators to get installed. There's still a process that we hope within a year well will get completed. One of the biggest reasons for the timing is delay on materials. We're looking still about another 5 to 6 months before we get our generator in. And it's been ordered for a while now. It's not like it just got ordered a week ago. It's been months since it's been ordered. So we're hoping it gets speed up faster than that. But at this point, the hard part's done. We found some good water. We've got the pipe there. We're ready to draw from it. So that's a really good sign. Also, our Valdepina Water and Street project will be going out to bid here real soon. We finally got all the USA markings on the road, so we've got everything we need to put down on the map for all the contractors to be able to view, to be able to give us a good number out there. So we'll definitely keep you posted when that comes. As well as our slurry and crack sealing project will be going out to bid soon, so we'll be able to come back with you with how that project is moving forward. Along with our Kerrigan lift station, we actually have a pre-construction meeting this Wednesday to talk about how the good process of that construction will go. So that lift station will be under construction, we hope, here within the next few months. And then one last thing is I really need to, I guess this is more of a 90s person, so a shout out to my department. We've had some pretty good storms in this weekend with the winds. Again, there's only 8 of us. Everybody made a commitment on Friday that they would not go anywhere over the weekend. They were here for support. I felt like we were able to keep a hold of it. We didn't get too many calls. We were on top of things. We had one gentleman that didn't sleep much at all, but I just want publicly to tell them thank you. They have done a fantastic job, and very proud to work alongside those guys. That's it for Public Works.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course, please.
Are we in a position to talk about or shed any light on the trees coming out on the community center, the 18 acres there?
Were you going to do that update on? Yeah, so we're kind of at this point now. I think we're ready this week. We're going to make a decision. We're going to sign a bid that we've got in and move forward with that. Talk with the contractor. The weather's hindering them a bit, but we have made an agreement. They hopefully can get started here within the next 30 to 60 days, and they will start on the McHenry orchard to get that one done first, so we can get all the, I know with the surrounding orchards around, there's some concerns, so we want to definitely get there and work on that one first. And they agreed that way if they need more time, we could put the other orchard off for a few weeks if we had to. They can come back to that, but they understand what the priority is, and they're trying to get us fit in sooner than later here.
Okay, and have we reached out yet or talked to John or Sharon Vaughn? I think
I've given a call in to John, but not received a call, but I will make sure within the next few days they're understanding what's going on. I was hoping they'd actually be here tonight so I could speak with them, but yeah, we'll definitely keep them in the loop so they can understand where we're at with that process.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other, go ahead. Please.
Justin, I have 2 questions.
Yes,
on
sir.
Valdepina and the slurry and crack seal. Before we go out to bid, can you give council a presentation, in particular on the slurry and crack seal, which streets we're planning on doing, so that the general public is aware what we're planning on going out to
Yeah, we have a map up
For-
now, not obviously, not now literally, but we have a map put together with that being said, so we can make sure to add that to the next council agenda.
Yeah, just so the general public's aware, these projects are going out to bid, this is what the scope of work is, this is where.
Yeah, along in there, they'll kind of see what we're doing now and then what's going to be kind of coming in the pipeline next year.
Okay.
We've kind of got a little bit newer program with Jayla and I that we're going to kind of start. I think it's going to work fabulous for the city and it's going to help everybody kind of understand what to expect next.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other staff updates?
Just 3 items from our department here. Wanted to let the public know that we have kind of done a call for the first poet laureate for the city. That is out there. It closes February 16th. So if you know anyone potentially interested, please have them apply to that program. This is the flyer that's out there. Again, February 16th.
We have one of those at the library.
We do. We have been coordinating with the library and other groups in town who may be of interest in this program. Kind of touching on the question by Councilmember Stroman here, we do have the 2024 pavement restoration project out for bid right now. We'll have bid openings on February 27th, so we can certainly bring the map to the council at the next meeting of what that project looks like, hitting several areas throughout town in this about $600,000 project that we have going on. Along with that, sort of, we have released an RFP for our building safety services. We contract those out. That contract is set to expire next month. And so we do have an RFP out for those services. At the same time, we have RFP services out for our general engineering consultant services as well. Both of those close towards the end of February. We'll do an evaluation and then select the best firms for our city. So both, again, for building services and engineering. And then I mentioned last meeting that we would provide an update on an evaluation we did at the California Mitchell intersection. So the council does have an email in front of them outlining kind of staff's approach, but I'll speak to that now. So at the last meeting, there was a call, 2 meetings, the meeting before that, there was a call for staff to look at a stop sign. At that meeting, there was not the consensus of the council, and council directed staff to look at potential other alternatives that could be seen there to hopefully reduce speeding and, avoid some of the near misses. Number 7 on the agenda today is a traffic calming program, and these dovetail in together. So what staff looked at is not only that intersection, but really the entire area, including Dent Elementary School. Looked at, the traffic flows, the traffic volumes, the speeds in that area. We worked closely with PD and staff who made physical observations of the area. Long story short, what we found out is the north-south roads aren't necessarily the problems in terms of speed. They are a little narrower, they're a little shorter. The east-west roads, Yosemite and California in particular, can see some higher speeds because they are wider roads. And so with a stop sign in our analytical approach not being warranted and the council not choosing to move forward with that, we looked at other things that we can do. So people will tend to drive faster with wide, not narrow, wider roads with less impediments. They will drive faster. So one of the things that we're proposing and shown in your email is an edge line striping on California to make it feel narrower, as well as center line striping, because right now there's basically no striping on that road and it feels wide.
Ask a quick question. So this proposed idea, is it based on, some sort of studies that have been done, or is there validity, in other words, to this plan?
Yeah. So I will say, I'll answer that in 2 different
Okay.
parts. The first part is, yes, it's absolutely based on best practices. But one of the thoughts behind this proposal is we can do it quickly and very inexpensively. And then we can see after it's been used for a while if this has made progress. in the minds of those who see it as a problem. If it doesn't, you know, it was quick and cheap to do.
We have traffic data, right, as far as speed, so we could probably put it in terms of numbers and visually see what the actual difference is.
We can absolutely. So we have the radar trailer out there for a couple weeks after the striping. If we wanted, we could have it out there for a couple more weeks to see if there was a measurable improvement. But what I do want to stress is the traffic data from the radar trailer showed that there were lower speeds. Now, I'm not saying that's the lived experience from the residents out there, because this was just a snapshot in time, but it did show low speeds.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond?
Yeah.
Jalen, Justin, Chief Flores, PD, Dominique, I appreciate this information. However, I think this plan is garbage. The reason being is because there are lines there currently. If the line, yes, there are no edge striping on there, but there is striping going down California right now. So what is spraying some lines on the pavement gonna do if there's already lines in the pavement already there and they're not doing anything? I can tell you based off of experience that we have edge striping on Yosemite and it does nothing for speeding, nothing. We have a council member along with me that lives on Yosemite's, lived there longer than I have, and I've only lived on Yosemite for 8 years, and the only break that we got for speeding was the installation of the speed humps. That was really the only remedy, if you will. Like I said, I appreciate the hard work, but Jalen, you and I have talked about this previously. I think the analytical data is skewed because common sense says when there is a radar trailer, people will naturally slow down. I mean, most people, not all people, but most people, when they see a radar trailer, they'll slow down. So I don't think we can really account for that. And I respectfully disagree about your statement that said that council said we weren't interested in the stop sign. I think the direction that was given to staff was go back and give us alternatives instead of a stop sign. And I see one alternative. So are you saying that the only remedy is the striping plan, or are we still considering some of the other ideas that are noted in the traffic calming plan?
For this proposal right now, we have reviewed the traffic calming plan, which is not adopted, right? But we have reviewed all kind of measures available to us, and we feel that without the stop sign, this is the most practical at this moment. And then we can judge it and evaluate it after that. Recognize your point about those who envision it to be an issue. Nothing is going to satisfy them outside of what they want, and we recognize that. And as we get into the traffic calming program, we will talk about this dual objective that cities have to move traffic, to not frustrate traffic, to have people obey the laws because they feel natural, versus maintaining safe speeds for our neighborhoods.
So let's talk hypothetical. Let's say that,
Yeah, we're getting into the weeds here before we get to the traffic calming plan, I think, on this.
well, it doesn't have to do with the traffic plan, it has to do with this email that we received from staff. Am I allowed to comment on it?
I would just say this portion of the staff comments, Brennock talks about brief announcements or reports by staff.
Okay.
That's kind of where we're at, but you may be able to get that in under item 7
Okay.
a little bit.
Do you have any others, or that was the last one?
That was the last item. Thank you,
All right.
Mayor.
Real quick, staff communications. Do we have any update on the hiring process for the finance director?
I do know that we have received 2 applications, and the city manager is scheduling for interviews as we speak.
Very good, thank you.
Right, moving to item number 6, considering the approval of the nonprofit organization application from the Escalon Sports Boosters for reduced fees of the use of the city facilities. Mr. French?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This item, similar to last meeting's item, is approving one group, the Escalon Sports Booster, for reduced fees for the use of city facilities. You will know at the last meeting, the city council approved 4 separate groups at the last meeting. This group did not get on before the deadline of that meeting, and so now we are bringing it back. I will also say in that same breath that the council did direct staff to bring back an ordinance that would change the code specifying whose authority it is to approve nonprofit groups under this provision. So at the next meeting, we will bring an ordinance forward for council's consideration to move that really to staff's purview and discretion rather than the council's.
Any questions here at the council level on this item?
I'd make a motion.
We gotta open up to the public as well before we do that, but I was gonna check with us if we had any questions up here. If not, anybody in the audience here in the room have any questions or concerns with this item? Seeing none, I guess we can bring back to a motion then.
I'd make a motion to go ahead and approve this. Nonprofit organization application for Escalon Sports Boosters, excuse me, for reduced fees for the use of the city facilities.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Carries 5-0. All right, item number 7. We're looking at our consider adopting the proposed City of Escalon traffic calming program.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So one of the most common complaints fielded by the city is in regards to speed and traffic volumes on predominantly residential roadways. In the past, the city hasn't had a process to really intake these complaints, concerns, and to evaluate them, but based on established criteria and metrics. So the primary purpose of traffic calming is to improve the livability and vitality of residential and commercial areas. So again, it's predominantly residential areas, but when we think about commercial areas, we think about Main Street, First Street. You know, you don't want to see fast speeds on those roads as well to affect commerce. As I mentioned in the last item, really staff is balancing these dual objectives to maintain traffic flow. No one wants a frustrated traffic system in your city, but also to maintain speeds that are safe for our residents and neighbors. And so these things can be at conflict with each other. If traffic is flowing too fast, that can lead to speeds and that can lead to dangerous situations. If it's too slow, it's going to be frustrated and really affect kind of the overall movement of the city. So what this plan does is establish kind of a framework, a process by which a resident can have a concern on a roadway and bring it into the city. The city will have a known and documented process to receive them, to review, and then it outlines the available traffic calming measures, you know, sort of at the city's discretion. So what the plan further does is potentially identify a funding source, and that's, you know, all of this is up to council's discretion. We receive approximately $435,000 in Measure K funding each year. 40,000 of that is for safety. Staff is proposing at this time to allocate either all or a portion of that funding directly to these kind of traffic calming measures. So, you know, 3 projects come in a year. We can evaluate those, identify the best traffic calming measure based on the criteria established, and then potentially utilize some of the Measure K funding to implement those programs. So the plan, as I was mentioning, does walk through a process. It does put a little onus on the resident. There is an application process, and it seeks to get buy-in by your neighbors. So the threshold that we set is 60% of the neighbors in the area would need to agree and approve of the issue or the specific traffic calming program. So if we receive less than 50%, we would either not consider, less than 60%, excuse me, we either not consider it or it would be less points, again, depending on the discretion of the council. City staff would review in coordination with our police department, the fire department, public works, as well as the city engineer. And then there are certain criteria which are outlined in the plan. You know, it's got to be a 500-foot long stretch. It's got to be one way in each direction, 30 miles an hour or less, primarily residential, and then after a speed survey result. So these are kind of the baseline for which projects can be evaluated. Do you have a question?
I have a question. In conjunction with this, does this get added on, shall we say, to when we tear up a road to redo the infrastructure underneath it, kind of like we did on Coley and David, where we put some speed tables, whatever you want to call those, speed humps? So this would be also a measure that gets rolled into that concept. When we do those projects, this will be reviewed for those streets at that time as well?
Absolutely. As you mentioned, any transportation project, roadway project that comes through, we will evaluate it based on the established traffic calming program measures. So we'll always be thinking through that lens.
So this project that is the slurry and crack seal that's currently out to bid, or any of the streets that were notified in this year's plan, do any of those streets require any of these traffic calming measures?
So the thing I'll say is that was a plan that's been prepared, some months ago, and this is not yet an approved document, but we can, if the council chooses to approve it, as we start to go out to bid, get a contractor on board, and work with them, we can evaluate through this lens.
One question I had, where you have the 60% residence thing, have we defined a sphere of what that 60% would include? Like, are we talking the houses on the corners, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
So if it's an intersection, it'll be all four segments of that road at a certain distance. We haven't exactly determined that distance. If it is a street segment, like we heard the Deborah Circle conversation some months ago, if it's that street segment, we look at all the houses that are adjacent to that street segment.
thank you.
I also,
Sorry,
Yeah.
just to follow up on that, but that will be clearly defined in the plan as it rolls out if adopted.
I have a couple comments also on 2.2 there. And it says the city will review based on following criteria which are intended as guidelines and not requirements. And so I'm looking at language, so I would request that some of this language be looked at as these are guidelines and not requirements. And so when it says, for example, 60% of residents in the area must support the project, probably should be should support the project or may support the project, and the same as 3 posted speed limit must be 30 miles per hour or less. These are suggestions, right? So there are guidelines and not requirements. So if we can have them more like they should or may instead of must, which just seems to be a hard line requirement, that would be my request there. And then the other comment that I have is on these traffic calming measures. I do see that stop signs are missing from the conversation and from this document. Is that something that's on purpose, or is that something we can add to one of the, main traffic calming measures that we have?
Yeah, we can absolutely include that. Some will debate whether a stop sign is a traffic calming measure or not, but at the council's discretion, we can absolutely add that.
guess my concern with adding it, traffic signs around town, as previously discussed in other meetings, requires warrant considerations for that. This traffic calming measure does not require an engineered warrant study analysis. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think
That's the fine line. I'm concerned with putting a stop sign in something that currently doesn't require that. We are at liberty to do anything without an engineer coming involved with this. If we feel it's in the best interest of the city, we add a stop sign, that forces a warrant analysis.
I think that is the broad conversation on why some don't see it as a traffic calming measure versus, just something else. But I think if we were to add it, right, the engineer, city staff still have the discretion to not choose that measure, right? We still have objective criteria here. We still have objective process. So if it didn't meet warrants, we could absolutely use that in staff's process to either, approve or deny a stop sign. So I wouldn't be uncomfortable if it was in, despite what you said, right, about it would still need to meet warrants where some of these other items, all of the other items, don't need necessarily a warrant analysis.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask my question?
Yeah.
Previous question now? Sorry, Jalen. But my question was, hypothetically speaking, and this isn't specific to California Mitchell, this is overall, what is the quote-unquote appeal process? So let's say put in striping, doesn't work, and the data says, well, yep, we did our traffic calming, and the residents don't necessarily see a change. What are the next steps after we do something, there's no difference in the end result, and the problem is continuing? The traffic calming plan doesn't talk about what are the next steps after that.
Yeah. So I like the line of questioning. The goal here is to get it right. And candidly, people will have different ideas of what right is.
Right.
Even those who are the most adamant about stop signs eventually could rue them, or, a neighbor next door could rue it, right? Because they see things differently. And so traffic engineering has become a less subjective and more objective process. We are in a very litigious society, and this is what city attorney spoke about during this last conversation. When something doesn't meet warrants and a council makes a decision to put it in, if something happens there, the city is just more at risk. So it has, devolved, if you want to call it that, but it really is an objective. And so the whole point of this, right, staff is bringing this forward to try to get it right, and people have different opinions on what is right. But in staff's proposal for the California Mitchell intersection, it's what's the first thing that we can do, the most cost-effective and easiest thing to do to help. That's step one. If that doesn't work, let's reevaluate. It's not a check the box, we've done something, let's move on. This is staff looking and saying, okay, what's the first step? Is there a second step? Is there a third step? Is there a fourth step? And that's, the commitment, at least for me, and that's what I think this plan can speak to. You asked what the next step is. The next step is a resident in 6 months or a year saying, hey, this isn't working, we want to reevaluate it. I have 65% of my neighbors who agree with me, we need to reevaluate this. So that's
So they have to go through the whole process all over again. It sounds like if we do something and it doesn't work, then they have to go through the process all
Sounds
over
reasonable,
again.
though. It's not that big of a process to do,
Okay.
to me anyways. Because if it works, then we're done. We're building in a process, we don't want to be overly cumbersome. If it works, we're good. If it doesn't, and there's enough dissension in the neighborhood that there's still a problem, they come back to us.
Yeah, I see what both your points. I mean, when you look at it, when I look at it, I think of you're balancing safety with cost and litigation essentially. And, you know, sometimes you can put paint on the ground and get the same outcome as a stop sign, and sometimes you can't. I don't think you can ever really fully know that till you run that kind of experiment, so to speak. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then, you know, if you wanted to streamline the process, I don't know how that would look, but maybe for something that's already existed, a problem that's already existed, maybe there's a more streamlined approach to that. I'm not quite sure.
I'll just answer that. I mean, I can think through the process, right? Let's say that the resident requested a stop sign. Staff, through this process, evaluate instead a stop sign wasn't warranted, but we could propose this. Let's say the proposal is less than what was requested. Perhaps there can be an open, you know, period of 6 months where staff, you know, evaluates that without having to go through the process. I'm just, you know, spitballing on what we could put in this plan at the direction of the council for those that, you know, again, got sort of less than what was requested.
We have enough speed trailers now. I understand we have a couple that are working on, that we added to our fleet, so we have a few more now, so maybe that's something that we propose, is to increase the review process, like you stated afterwards, at 90 days, at 180 days, see where we're at, see if there's an effective change in what we did, go from there.
If I may.
Please.
First, I want to address staff and express my appreciation for you guys noticing that there's a traffic issue and making an attempt. And I think that the traffic calming plan is a great first step. I believe that the striping is a great first start. What I have an issue with, though, is just a moment ago when we were talking about intersections, how the 60% wasn't clearly defined. And in my opinion, then that makes this an incomplete document, and I don't see a way to approve an incomplete document tonight.
I appreciate that point. We could set, you know, a number, 500 feet from the intersection, 300 feet from the intersection. 300 feet would be about 5 houses, you know, in each way. We could set that number. We can absolutely bring it back if it's the purview of the council.
It appeared fairly comprehensive to me. In your opinion, I know you did a lot of work on that, right? Are there any other portions of the document that are still incomplete or are up for question?
I don't think so, but I would classify all of these types of documents as living documents. In code, in law, in anything, you can't see around every corner, right? And there's going to be unique things that we find, and so, you know, that's why you have the amendment process. But no, I don't think there's anything, from my view, that is incomplete.
Can I ask a quick question? For City Lawyer Frank, can you
The
weigh
Constitution's not, the United States Constitution is not a living document, though, for the record.
Thank you.
It's alive to me.
Can you repeat that, Frank? A little louder, please.
I was just triggered when I heard that, that's all.
On the back.
Could you weigh in on this as far as what you think, you know, because he brings up a valid thought, and I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that.
You're talking about Councilmember Engel's comments?
Correct, as far as,
Yeah.
you know, the document as it exists.
I was talking with Jalen about this earlier, and this is the first time the city's ever unearthed a document like this. And so the operative phrase that was in my head was, you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good here, in the sense of, and so in that sense, Jalen is right. This is a living document in the sense of this will go through iterations and versions and amendments. It's a good sound document, but there may be things that need to be shored up and defined. But I think part of that's going to be growing pains that are, you know, in a good way as this gets applied in the real world. So I would just say, let's take what we can from what changes we see now, and then as there are changes that need to be made, we can make those later. That's the good thing about this. It's just a plan, and the plan can be amended and tweaked as time goes on.
So if that,
I'll just add to that. I mean, there's no rush here, right? There's no deadline, timeline. If the council is not comfortable with the full document right now, we can absolutely bring it back. It's a good first look for you all.
I personally like where you're going with it. I just want to make sure that, someone comes up and hypothetically has an issue or something, and it's written in vague language, then it can be interpreted in so many different ways. How do we address that without having to constantly bring it back to us? Or
Yeah, what I would say is hopefully you get competent advice from your city attorney and also your CD director to basically say, I think this is what we think the intent is.
Gotcha.
This document is not a regulatory document. It's meant to be a user manual. I would say, I would refer to it more as a manual than a
guide.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
And so the idea is, you don't want to apply it with such a heavy hand that you defeat, being useful. But if we see themes of, if we see things that are inconsistent, we can certainly clean those up. And those can be quickly done on the consent calendar from time to time. I mean, so I guess my answer is there's not a perfect answer to that other than say, hopefully this is supposed to be a useful document that's a useful guide, but you don't have to feel trapped in it like you would. It's not a regulatory document.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So my thoughts real quick on the idea of a distance from an intersection or a location of a problem. We can decide to add that if we so chose to want to push this through tonight and vote on it, whether it's 300 or 500 foot or 6 houses from the situation on every side of the area. We can make that determination to add to it right now if we wanted to go that direction. In my feeling, we can make that slight adjustment. They can update it and move on if we're good with the basic language of the other stuff, or we can obviously bring it back to another meeting should we so choose. But if everybody's comfortable with the document, with a few things we've talked about, we can ask for those changes in the motion and do that from there as a thought. Any other questions here before I open it up to the folks in the audience here?
One quick question. Jalen, this draft that we're seeing, does it take into account the 7 comments by the Planning Commission?
This does not yet. What we don't want to do is change the document in between reviews, just in case, the approving body here, in this case, the council, does not agree. So what we've done is we've kept the document the same as with the Planning Commission and showed you the comments that the Planning Commission has made.
With that, we'll open up to the folks here in the audience. If you'd like to come to the podium and ask any questions or comments or concerns.
Kurt Danziger once again. Just a couple of comments. Been here for a long time. This, as Justin knows, comes up all the time, and there's no go-to Bible guide document whatsoever to show the council which direction they can go. So this is a good idea, I think. I like the idea that it's a living document. I'm always in favor of that. I will tell you about warrants, though, Mayor Bellinger. The stop sign on 4th Street came to fruition because one person that lives on the northeast corner of that intersection stood right here and told the city council that they'd had 2 drunk drivers go right through their fence right there, and she wanted a stop sign. Sitting right there, and she did it. 6 weeks later, there's a stop sign. So I don't know about your warrants, but that person got her stop sign. 2 council meetings after that, a resident from Oakdale that works in Escalon stood right here and said, who the hell put that up? Take that thing down. That thing just creates smog and pollution there. We don't need to have a stop sign. So you're never going to make anybody happy, but I don't think there's any area in town that you guys can't stick a stop sign. I'm saying that. Another point was Brennan, where the county road intersects with the city road, and there was a lot of complaints, 5-10 years ago, you remember, with the residents there because they had grandkids out there, and people go flying down Brennan, whether they're semi-trucks or anybody else, and so they put up the diverters and as a calming device. Let me tell you, that split that roadway there, and people with RVs, we went around the other way to get by them, but I don't know what happened to those. Did people knock them over?
They keep getting stolen,
Stolen, okay.
or removed from somebody, I should say.
But while they were up there, I think they did a pretty good job in that particular area. The other thing I noticed for me personally are those little road bumps that you installed. Those are a pain in the ass, so they're good. You know, you stick those things out there and you get tired of going over those things. So whether it's residential or it's a city street, that's something that should be on the top of your, I guess, hit parade and your list of things there. I think there's a section in the general plan for under circulation that addresses some of these traffic calming deals there. So I don't know if you want to incorporate that in with that, or this is standalone. I just think there was there. I don't like roundabouts. I'd rather have a stop sign. I live over there by Chelstina and First Street, and let me tell you, I'm nervous as hell coming up to that intersection because a lot of it's blind, and I don't know who's coming, and people fly. They fly around those things, especially going down First Street. So that's just my opinion. And the last thing I would say is, in Bella Terra and the new developments, traffic calming reduce the width of the road. So the thought being, people slow down because the road's not wide. That's BS. When Miss Housewife with 3 kids, is late for soccer or whatever, they're going down that street faster than anybody. And because the road's narrow, there's more of an opportunity to hit somebody coming out behind a car than it is if you got a wider street like California. So just things I'd like to throw in my 2 cents with on your traffic calming measures. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the council for either motion or
Sure.
postponement. What would we like
I'll
to
make a
do? What are
motion.
some thoughts here?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adopt the City of Escalon Traffic Calming Program with an amendment to item number 6 under 2.2, preliminary review of the application, that would read up to 4 homes in all directions at an intersection.
I'd second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion before we move on?
I'm still looking for language to be changed to be less harsh on 2.2 and less exact, looking like exact requirements. I'd also like to see stop signs added to your optional traffic calming measures, as this is a guiding document and it's an informational document, and it's just for residents to request that the city look into these types of traffic calming measures. And so nothing is hard line. It always comes through council and it'll always come through engineering. So those are the things I'm looking to add for
At this point, we have a motion. So, City Attorney, just to be clear, we have to ask if we're allowed to amend that motion to go forward with the idea of changing that motion? Or do we just go for a vote for that and then go from that, or what do we do here?
What I would do is I would try to get a clean motion with all the amendments that you want in it, and then you get a second and vote on that.
Okay.
I wouldn't.
As the person who made the motion, they have to be given permission to change their motion,
Yes,
correct?
Yeah,
yes.
I wouldn't agree to the amendments.
Okay, so we have a first. Do we have a second on the first?
We have a
Okay,
second.
so then what we can do is we can do a substitute motion.
Can I make some comments?
Yeah, we have a first and second on the floor, so comments can be made.
Okay. My comments are, it sounds to me like there are enough changes in this to warrant further revision and then bring it back at the next meeting. If there's no rush, there's every single person up here brought up items that they would like to see revised. So what's the rush of pushing this through tonight? That's my question.
I tend to agree. There's no hurry, and I would love it if staff can revise it and bring it back.
I'd have to disagree with the revision of your request for 2.2, item 6. it must read must, it must be solid, it can't be wishy-washy. Well, kinda, if 60% of people kinda agree, they must agree in order for it to pass.
Well, then the comment before it that says the city will review based on the following criteria, which are guidelines and not requirements, can't say guidelines and not requirements. If we're not saying it's a guideline.
This would be to support the project, so if you scroll down further where we're looking at signatures, if they're gonna be able to get that to go any further, they're gonna need to get 60%.
Then it needs to fall under a different stipulation and not 2.2 where it's saying these are guidelines. There would be another section that would say these are requirements
Why
of this
wouldn't?
document.
Why couldn't that they must support the project be a guideline?
It's a requirement. Must is a requirement.
I think we're splitting
That
hairs
could be
here
in
at
the
this point.
guideline?
Myself.
Is that correct? I mean, am I out of line?
Yeah. I think the intent of this is some of these have to be, any engineer has to use engineering judgment when they're doing a tech memo or analysis on any given location for it. So in that sense, it's a guideline. At the same time, the council can say can establish when they want certain trigger for when they're going to look at it. And if 60% is the number, then 60% can be the number for the council. But some of those things like roadway segment should be at least 500 feet in length between traffic control and or curve of less than 250. Maybe engineer will look at it and say, basically on the particular location there, that 500 and that 250, a field fit wouldn't work with those exact numbers. But the 60% number is a number that you're just saying as a policy matter, 60% have to hit that threshold for us to further consider it. So I guess what I would say is there's going to be certain field fits and certain engineering judgment that's going to have to be used for all of this, except for the ones that are pure policy based. And I would say number 6 is pure policy based.
Okay. So I think the next step then,
So in its current, I'm sorry, go ahead. In its current form, and as far as what's been put forth, anything else can be added. It's a living document, right? So this is more of a preliminary, starting point, a reference point to move forward. That's my understanding. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the plan, and the plan, the plan is can be changed, as questions or issues come up.
So we're going to have an engineer look through this then? Is that what you're thinking? In other words, this is a guideline we have, right? Are we having?
This is a plan. This is a plan that the council is adopting. Just like any other plan, the plan can change. This is going to probably go through many iterations or amendments over the years.
So Frank, explain that process to me then. If this is a living document and there's a vote on this tonight, and it doesn't take in what we're voting on this right now, but it doesn't take in any of the requested changes that we did, any of the comments made by the planning commission, then all those are changed, and then that looks completely different than what we've just voted on. So how does that work?
Wait, it doesn't take in the changes that have been proposed?
What I'm saying is that what we're voting on right now does not account for the changes that we have been suggesting. It also doesn't take into account the comments that were made by the planning commission. So we're voting on a document that's already out of date.
not necessarily.
All I mean by a living document is it's still subject to be amended at any time. It may not be amended in a particular way right now based on other feedback that's been given, but with the will of the council going forward, with this council and future councils, it can be changed in amendment. This is much more easily changed than ordinances, for example. Once those get codified, it requires a first reading, a second reading, and it requires a specific notice in the public, that sort of thing. This is a document that can be changed by motion of the council in the future. This council can request for future agenda items to revisit and review certain sections of this document. In that sense, it's a living document. The council, this is their document to change as you want. The first conversation of that being changed is happening tonight, but doesn't mean it's going to be the last.
With the approval of this, does that speed up the first measure that's being proposed for California and Mitchell?
Not necessarily. I mean, this is a proposal that staff has put. Whether we have a plan or not, there's still best practices out there. This is one that was brought forward by the council, not necessarily a resident. It didn't go through the process to receive votes, but staff is evaluating it, right? So it doesn't necessarily speed that one up. What we wanted to do is capture everything, all the resident questions, all the council questions, capture it in this process so we could evaluate it and the public knew how, why, and where we were evaluating it, right?
Well, essentially, at minimum, if it gets pushed off one meeting or two meetings, it prolongs at a minimum of 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whenever it comes back on the agenda, right? Taking some action on a problem that we currently have that we want to tackle, right? Potentially, yes?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Franco, we have a question that looked like there was somebody in the audience that might want to speak to that. Are we allowed to open this back up because we are discussing this motion, or is it closed to the public? Which way does this go?
When we close the public comment, it stays closed.
So we've closed the public comment?
Yes.
Okay. Can I? Am I allowed to
As the
reopen?
chair, you have the
That
ability
is the
to
question.
reopen it.
Okay. I'm going to reopen it. There's a question in the audience that would like to come to the podium.
I assume that the council's still working on Robert's Rules of Order, and if not, Rosenberg's. Under both of those rules of order for any public meeting, a motion's been made, it's been seconded. Now you take a vote. If it fails because of discussion between those times, then it fails and you start over. But in the meantime, you still have a motion and a second.
Yes, we
You've got
do.
to deal with that first. So,
That is correct. There will be a vote shortly.
okay, thank you.
We have not lost notice of the
And
fact.
just to
there
be
was a-
clear, under either of those rules, the first and second gives you the right to discuss, deliberate, and then vote. So you don't have to go straight to call the question after first and second. You can deliberate, discuss. Yeah, but the point is noted, the vote needs to happen at
Right.
some point.
Recognizing that.
Yes.
So at that point, Councilman Engel, you are steadfast with your motion and not looking to make a change. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we still have a second. Is that correct, Mayor Pro Tem?
Correct.
No, I'm just part of the discussion, or is that okay?
If you want to discuss it.
Sure. So my fear, if we don't get language correct, would be that this document, which goes to staff first, then goes to council, somehow is held up in staff because they don't meet these stipulations that say must, but we're saying that, well, it can come to council. If it says must, it's gonna get held up by staff. It's never actually going to make it to us for us to say, okay, well, maybe this needs to be amended, maybe we do need to make changes to this document. And to me, that's the importance of having this correct, is because I don't want it to get stuck in staff and not make it to council for consideration at some point.
Okay.
So.
So the biggest hang up that you got currently is the must on the 60%. Is that accurate? That you're concerned with?
On all of these stipulations, correct. And that there's no stop sign as well. I would like to have a stop sign in this document.
Okay.
My comments are this document does not account for any follow-up after a reevaluation if it doesn't work.
Right? Any more discussion before we go to a vote with the motion? Could you read back the motion, please, so we have that fresh before we vote?
I could repeat it if that's helpful.
Yeah, I just want to repeat it for the record, or,
Yes.
sorry to put you back on the spot on that.
No, that's okay.
I just want to make sure we're all
that
clear of the motion you
My
made.
verbiage is correct. Let me get back here to
did write
one,
it
too.
down, too.
Okay, so it would be that I would motion to adopt the City of Escalon Traffic Calming Program with an amendment under 2.2 preliminary review of the application, item number 6, where it states 60% of the residents in the area must support the project, that it is added at an intersection that 4 property owners in each direction of the intersection would be required to be polled, and it would be 60% of those residents.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion
abstain.
carries 3-2.
I abstain.
You abstain? Motion carries 3-1. All right. Next item is council communication and future agenda items. Councilman Stroman, what do you have for tonight?
Just one quick thing. I'm looking for council consensus at the next meeting to talk about providing council members access to City Hall. Most of us, or all of us, actually have jobs and other commitments outside of the city, and sometimes it's difficult to try to get back here 8 to 5, and so I'm looking for council consensus to restore access to City Hall so that we can check our mailboxes.
Can you expand on, other than checking for mail, why would you need access to this building outside of regular business hours?
That's really the only main reason, and when I have meetings to come in, sometimes I can't get into the front door, and if staff is in the back, is in a meeting, they don't hear me
Front
knocking.
door is locked during normal business hours for a meeting?
On Fridays, yes.
And it's meeting with the city manager, you can't call her to say, I'm here, open the door?
I can, I'm just asking for a discussion about restoration of that.
I'll back that. I have no problem with that conversation, to be honest. There's precedent for it. If I remember, when I first came onto the council, we were given a card, and then for some reason that did go away. So I don't know exactly all the reasoning behind it, but I do know that there has been precedence for it, so we should probably have that conversation.
I would say there's precedent, but personally, I'm going to just say that I see no reason for a city council member to be inside this building on a weekend or after hours. There's no reason for have access to this building, keep the building secure, less people, more secure. But nonetheless, if there's a conversation next time, so be it.
Yeah, it's a discussion, so.
Yeah,
You need a third?
I just need a second to add it.
I'll say just 2.
My other comment for this evening is just want to say a really big thank you to Public Works for all of your hard work over the recent storm. I know it probably wasn't easy, and a lot of guys and folks getting wet, as well as to PD for keeping our little town safe with the gale force winds coming through, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Walker.
Sure. So I still want to just start by thanking Public Works. We had softball evaluation, baseball and softball evaluations a week and a half ago. It doesn't usually fall on the championship football game Sunday, and it usually doesn't go away from being at the community center where we have all of the equipment and all of that. And George was in great spirits, as he did have to, come away from the football game for a little bit. And I just really appreciate that all came together. It seemed to go really well, and appreciated all your hard work and George and Public Works coming out and helping us with that. So
Big team effort. Thank you to Yvette also. She had a big hand in that as well.
yeah, awesome. So thank you so much for making that work out this year. So we should have a great fields out there. They're all being redone and reseeded out there. So fields should be looking good for opening day coming up too. And besides that, I think I'll just end on that. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Councilman Engel.
Yeah, I would just like to, I don't know if I need consensus or if it's just going to come up next meeting anyway, but publicly review the results from the survey and the meeting notes from the Main Street Park workshops and meetings. Is that something that's on there already? Do I need consensus for that?
I don't believe we intended to bring it back to the council like that. We are going through a process to redesign I will share with you, we are trying to retain the services of a landscape architect, someone with a little more park experience to help navigate some of the questions and concerns that we've received. From there, we plan to provide several, 3 to 5 options for council and public consideration. We will have at least a couple of public meetings in the concept phase. And then as we coalesce, hopefully we coalesce around, 1 or 2 options, we'll bring that forward to the council for a final determination. During that time, we will work with BNSF on the issue of, we own, are they going to charge more if we improve the project, all of that. We will also work with the funding agency, SJCOG, to determine what is eligible cost under this grant and what is not. When all of those come together, then bring it back before the council to make a final determination. Then, if we are moving forward with a project, we'll go back out to bid for whatever that project looks like, and then get into construction. So that's the process as we see it.
So it sounds like then I will need consensus. So what I'd like to see is the results of the feedback from those meetings prior to issuing any additional revisions. I'd like to hear what the public said, since not all of us were able to go to both meetings. Not all of us might have been able to be in attendance from the previous meeting. So if we can just do a brief summary with that, I still hope to move forward with whatever the town decides to do with the park. But if we have that information and it's able to be shared, I'd like to get it.
I thought we got a brief update on that, did we not? In an email, there was some
Shared
yeses and
to
no's
the
on that?
public, yeah. Just one.
Oh, to share to the public is what you, oh, okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, I'd back you on that.
Thank you. And that's all I have.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Public Works, apologize for that. I wanted to say thank you for all you've done for, keeping up with the storm. I know it's not easy when things are dropping randomly. Appreciate the efforts your team's putting in with, the recreation. It doesn't go unnoticed, so I appreciate that. Rest of staff, hey, you're doing a great job. Keep working. I know a lot of these conversations are complicated, but as we work through them with rational heads and conversation, I think we can get our answers, get to the right answer. Other than that, I did want to ask for two thoughts. One was for discussion for an idea for a recreation plan that could stabilize our budget. In other words, that could allow us to spend less money, but at the same time, still have a real robust recreation plan. And I wanted to present that for a discussion at some point, if possible. That was the first thought. And so I was looking for consensus or backing on that.
I will support that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thank you. The other is the idea or discussion about potentially having a consultant that understands the best strategy for cutting red tape so that we can foster healthy business flow into town without, hurting our community. And that's what I had for there.
And can you be a little more specific on that second one?
So what I was thinking is basically finding a consultant, if they're out there, that understands how to like when we say cut red tape and brings business in and foster positive, healthy business growth. How is the best strategy to do that? What fees, in other words, should be cut, what fees shouldn't be cut, what's the best avenue for attack for that. And because I think that as you bring business into town that are positive businesses, it leads obviously to potentially higher sales tax base. It leads to better jobs. People have better quality of life. There's more amenities that are there. And as they spend money locally, that feeds back in a positive looping cycle into the sales tax base. And so I think that there's a way there where we can maximize our money into the community, but in a way that is not going to have a negative footprint.
So were you asking, just because I want to be able to support you, but I want to make sure that I understand.
Okay.
Are you looking for an RFP for that actual business development consultant, or are you looking for the identification of some of those consultants to then further that conversation?
The identification and then conversation with the council. And then as a group, we would discuss it and give direction from there.
Okay. I could support that.
Am I allowed to ask a question on that?
Sure.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, I think what you're asking for, and I'm just paraphrasing, but I think what you're trying to do is have a discussion, have somebody holistically look at what we can do to get rid of some of the layers of bureaucracy and be more business friendly, to invite businesses to come into the city. But having a consultant review this and say, well, you don't really need this, I would encourage adding this. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Basically, yes. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, in other words, an expert in the field that understands how to bring positive business into town. So like, when I say positive business, I mean things that aren't going to be like a smoke shop. You know, things that are going to bring positive jobs. They're going to bring quality jobs that also, you know, basically hook into the sales tax base. And, you know, we have quite a few areas in our corridor that if we use that properly will allow us to not really have to, you know, change the town much. Or if we do, it's in a way that's on our terms, not someone else's.
So we have a consensus to get that on one of the next two agendas, depending on what all the agendas look like to fit everything on.
Yeah.
But yeah, work with
Yeah, wherever we can fit it in. There's no.
City Manager Romo on the next few agendas to try and get all this done and within the next two meetings, I would think. Anything else?
No, and just thank you for a good meeting tonight.
All right, I'll try and keep it short. I echo the sentiments to thank Public Works. Great job, keep it up. Same with city staff, keep up the hard work that you guys are doing, we notice it. Thank you, Ms. Sandoval, for bringing that information for the seniors for tax. I did not know that existed out there. So let's spread the word, everybody who's here and everybody who hears this meeting and everything, spread the love out there. So some of the seniors that don't necessarily have folks that can help them with their taxes, they do have professionals that can help do those tax returns for them. And with that, I'm just gonna leave it at that, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thanks for everybody coming. We're adjourned.
That's for low-income citizens, right? That's for low-income citizens.